In this video, let's see how to crochet this super cute, easy and fun project, Plush Octopus. Let's get started. Hey guys, welcome to DIY Crafts. For this project, I'm using Premier Just Chenille yarn. It's a 100% polyester, weight 6, super bulky and with a crochet hook of 4.5 mm. However, you can use your favorite blanket yarn for this project. First, let us begin by making a magic circle. Put the starting tail end in your left hand and with the working end, make a loop as shown in the video. Now from the center of the circle, insert your hook and pull up a loop. Now adjust the loop on the hook, hold the circle and make chain 1. That is the magic circle. Now in this center, we are going to make 8 single crochet stitches. Insert the hook into the center, pull up a loop, yarn over and make a single stitch. And this is the first stitch of the first row, and I'm putting a stitch marker on top of this to identify the stitches. Now again into the center, drop a loop and make a second single stitch and continue this one. This is the third single stitch and then the fourth single stitch, 5, 6, 7 and 8. Once 8 stitches are completed, you can cross check the count by counting the V shapes on top of the row. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 and 8. That is how you do the counting after completing each and every row. Now pull the starting tail end to close the magic ring. And sometimes when you pull the tail end tightly, this yarn may shred, but it's not any mistake. You have to cut that part of the yarn and redo whatever we have done just now, if that happens. So after completing the first row, remove the stitch marker and let's continue making the second row. Into that same stitch where you have removed the stitch marker, make one single stitch and put the stitch marker on top of this stitch. So this is the first stitch of the second row. We have made one single stitch in the first one. Now into the same stitch we have to put our needle again and make another single stitch. So this is called as an increase. We have made 2 single stitches in the same stitch. And now we have to continue to make increases in all the stitches around the row. So that's one single stitch, and in the same stitch I am making another single stitch. So that's the second increase. And in the third stitch, make another increase. That's one single stitch and another single stitch in the same stitch. So we have done 3 increases. Now continue to make increases in all of the rest of the 5 stitches. And that completes the second row with 16 single stitches, and you can check the count by counting these V shapes throughout the row. Now remove the stitch marker, make one single stitch to begin the third row and then put a stitch marker on this first stitch to mark the beginning of the third row. And now for the third row, pattern is one single stitch each, which means we have to make one single stitch in each of the stitches throughout the row. Just put a count on the stitches while you are making and complete the third row with one single stitch on top of each stitch, which means by the end of the third row we will have 16 single stitches. Now remove the stitch marker and let us start making the fourth row. Begin with one single stitch and put the stitch marker on top of the first stitch to mark the beginning of the fourth row. And for the fourth row, the pattern is one single stitch and one increase. So we have already completed one single stitch in the first stitch. In the next stitch, we have made an increase, which is 2 single stitches worked in the same stitch. And this is the pattern. We have to repeat it for total 8 times. We have done the first one and now I am doing it the second repetition. So one single stitch and now increase in the next single stitch. So this is the second repetition. Again we will repeat it the same way throughout the row. And now once we are done with the 8th repetition, that is the increase of the last set, we will have 24 single stitches by the end of the 4th row. This is the shape you are going to get after completing 4 rows. Remove the stitch marker and make one single stitch and put a stitch marker back to mark the beginning of the 5th row. And now from row 5 to row 8 we have to make one single stitch in each and every stitch throughout the row. As we are not making any increases, the count will remain the same. For row 5, 6, 7 and 8, we are going to have the same 24 stitches in each and every row. And once you are done with the 8th row, this is how the shape of your project should look like, just like a small cap. Now for the 9th row, remove the stitch marker, make a slip stitch in the next stitch, and then adjust the loop, make chain 1, insert your hook only in the back loop of the first stitch, and then pull up a loop. Hold those loops, and from the back loop of the next stitch, insert your hook again and pull up another loop from the back loop of the second stitch. Now you will have 3 loops on the hook. Yarn over and draw the yarn through all the 3 loops at a time. So here we have made a single crochet decrease. Now this is the first stitch of the 9th row, so we put a stitch marker in that one. And for the overall 9th row, we are going to work only in the back loops. And in the next stitch, we are going to make one single stitch, and we are going to repeat this pattern. So into the back loops of the next 2 stitches, pull up a loop from each, yarn over and make a decrease, and then one single stitch. So that's the second set. And now we are leaving the front loops. This will form a small line like thing at the front, from where we are going to attach the tentacles of the octopus. So we will continue the same pattern throughout the row for 8 times. So we will start with a decrease. So back loop of the first stitch, pull up a loop, back loop of the next stitch, pull up another loop, yarn over and draw the yarn through all 3 loops. So that's a decrease, and one single stitch in the next stitch. So that's the 3rd repetition, and we will continue this pattern throughout the row until the starting point. Now we have almost come to the last stitch. On top of the last stitch, insert your hook into the back loop and make one single stitch. Now if you check the count, we will have 16 single crochet stitches. Remove the stitch marker, and on top of the first stitch, insert your hook and make a slip stitch. This completes the 9th row. Now let's start making the 10th row. Chain 1, and before we continue with the 10th row, which will be the last row of our pattern, we will add the detailing part. For the eyes, if you want, you can add a smile, cheeks, or any other embellishments you wanted to put it on your project. And for eyes, we are going to use this 8mm safety eyes. If you want, you can embroider the same onto your project. And between row 5 and row 6, with the 4 stitches apart, I am fixing these Google eyes, the safety eyes into the project, and securing the back of the safety eyes using the washers that these eyes comes with. Now let's add some stuffing into the project. Take a good amount of fiber fill and put it into your project so that it holds a good shape of your project. And once the stuffing is done, let's go back and continue with the 10th row pattern. So adjust the loop, as we have already completed the chain 1. Now we are going to make a invisible decrease. So for that, insert your hook into the front loop of the first stitch, and then twist your needle and insert your hook into the front loop of the next stitch. Now take the yarn and bring the yarn out of the front loops of the first 2 stitches, and then yarn over and complete your single stitch. So that is the single crochet invisible decrease. Now put a stitch marker on that so that you will have a better identification of the 10th row. Now again, insert your hook into the front loops of the next 2 stitches. So that's the first stitch front loop and the second stitch front loop. Insert your hook, take the yarn and bring it out from both the front loops, yarn over and the single stitch. So that's the second stitch completed. And now we are doing the third single stitch decrease. And likewise, we will continue throughout the row. We will have a total of 8 invisible decreases in the 10th row. And once all the decreases are completed, remove the stitch marker and let's make a slip stitch on top of the first stitch. So insert your hook into it and then make a slip stitch. Now chain 1 and then cut the yarn, leaving a long tail end. like good enough for us to close the opening and also to hide the tail end. And now whatever loop is there on the hook, pull it out completely. Now this forms the base of our octopus. Now let's close the opening at the bottom. For this, take the tail end into the tapestry needle. And now we are going to pass this yarn through the front loops of the last row. So for this, weave in into the next stitch and weave out from the next stitch as shown in the video. And we are going to use only the front loops of the last row. And again weave in and weave out of the next 2 stitches. And repeat this throughout all the stitches in your last row until you have come to the first stitch. And once it is done, gently pull the last thread and this one will close the opening at the base of your project. Now into the next stitch, insert your needle and make a knot at the base of the project. So make it tighter and close as possible to the base. And this close the center. Now insert the needle into the stuffing part and pull out the loop extra thread out of the project. Now you can cut the yarn close to the project, leaving a very little bit of the yarn. So as you can see, the yarn shreds a little bit, and to save it from happening that further, we will just seal the thread using a little bit of the fire like this. And once the thread is sealed out, you can push that excess thread into the stuffing part again with the help of a needle like this. And we are going to do the same thing with the remaining threads as well, like once we completed making the tentacles. So for making the tentacles, we are going to use the front loops that we have left while we are making the 9th row. Now make sure that the eyes are on the bottom side when you are putting your needle into the tentacles part. So insert your hook into the front loop and pull up a loop from any of the front loops. Any stitch is fine. Now chain 1 and make 1 single stitch in the first stitch. So that's the first single crochet, and if you need it, you can put a stitch marker on top of this. And now in the next stitch, we are going to make 3 double crochet stitches. So that's the first one, and this is the second double crochet, and into the same stitch we are making a 3rd double crochet. And now in the next stitch, make 1 single stitch. And this is the pattern that we are going to repeat throughout the row, which is 1 single stitch, 3DC and 1 single stitch for each tentacle, and we will have a total of 8 tentacles. Again for the next one, 1 single stitch, and in the next stitch we will make 3 double crochet. So that's the first double stitch, second one, and the 3rd double stitch. And then in the next stitch make 1 single stitch. So this is the second tentacle, and you can see the shape of it. Now for the 3rd one, begin with 1 single stitch, make 3 DCs in the next stitch. So that's 1, 2 and 3. And then in the next stitch make 1 single stitch, and we will continue this throughout the row. So that's the 4th one, 1 single stitch. And you can see that each tentacles is forming like an arch shape for the project. And we'll continue this throughout the row until you reach the first stitch. And by the last stitch, we will have total of 8 tentacles. The last single stitch. And then make a slip stitch on top of the first single stitch. Once all the tentacles is completed, chain 1 and then leave the long tail end before you cut the yarn. Again, with the help of the tapestry needles, we are going to hide these tail ends into the stuffing of the project. So this completed the tentacles part, and as you can see, it forms a nice flower shape at the base of the octopus. Now take the tail end into the tapestry needle and hide the thread into the stuffing part. And just like how we have done with the last piece of the yarn while we are working with the base, just like that. Leave a little bit of yarn piece to the outside of the project, and then seal the threads with the small amount of wire. And after that you can hide the excess thread into the project, and we are going to use the same technique to hide the second tail end from the tentacles as well. And once the finishings are completed, your mini plush octopus is ready. You can use it as a keychain, bag charm, or you can even gift it to your loved ones. I hope you all enjoyed watching this tutorial. Do give this pattern a try and let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. The written pattern is given in the description. Do check it out. See you all in the next video. Thank you for watching. Please like the video, share it, and subscribe to DIY Crafts.